Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Hidden Gems podcast. This is another live version of the podcast. When we have a super busy week, which we did this week, then we just decide to go live because it's a little less work. You don't have to edit and all that fun stuff. But we thought it was appropriate too this week where we have such a big week for Disney Plus that this would be a fun experience for us to hopefully get some of your feedback about Wandavision and Raya. And so I'm so excited to be here. I'm Rachel Wagner, and Ryan is here.
Hey, Rachel. So great to be back with you once again. And in the words of Monday Night Raw from 1993, we are uncooked, uncut, and uncensored. Or well, maybe we won't curse so much because, this is a Catholic stream. Yeah. But still, I mean, we are as live as life can get. And it was a busy week for me. Very gratifying and very fulfilling, but busy nonetheless. And busy week for Disney too. Like, man, they got one of their big series, their big Marvel series, like the first in their big string of MCU television series just ended. And the same weekend it ends, like Walt Disney Animation Studios' latest movie, Raya, comes out. So it's like they've got the double threat coming their way.
It really is very exciting a week to be a Disney Plus subscriber. And of course, with Raya, it is the $30 upcharge that you have to pay to get it right now. I want to recommend if people aren't super anxious and they can wait, then we also have starting this week the New York International Children's Film Festival. And if you want to, you can pay the $30 to Disney for the premiere access, or you can wait until the 12th, sign up for the festival, which starts today, and get over 10 days of high quality films that you can watch, and get Raya and the Last Dragon, and get a Q&A with the creators of Raya and the Last Dragon, $40. So for only a little bit more, you get a whole week of the festival and a Q&A. So I highly recommend if you can do that, check it out. I did a whole preview for the festival on Monday on my channel, so make sure to check that out. But yeah, we both had the opportunity to see Raya and the Last Dragon. So why don't we start there, and then we can talk WandaVision, and we'll try to keep this fairly spoiler-free. So this will be sort of a basic discussion, not too in the weeds, because I don't think we have time for that.
Yeah, but especially with WandaVision, I think we could dedicate an entire stream just to that.
Yes, definitely. And with Raya and the Last Dragon, we are doing a Talking Disney, and that will be a lot more in-depth and, again, in the weeds kind of discussion with me, Stanford, and YouTuber Alexander Robinson is going to be there. And we're recording that next week, so it'll be probably the week after that it'll drop. So we got lots of coverage of Raya coming. But overall, Ryan, what did you think about Raya and the Last Dragon overall?
Overall, I thought it was just okay. Don't get me wrong. I thought it was very well made. It looks beautiful. I think it was a pretty smart decision not to make it a musical. So I think that was a pretty good idea. Kelly Marie Tran was really good as Raya. I liked the rest of the cast as well. They did a really good job. But there was just some things about this, and of course, I'd have to go into spoilers, and I don't want to do that. So that just kind of docket points for me. And I think the biggest problem I could say non-spoilery for me is that I thought it was just a little too predictable. And I can kind of forgive that in most cases, but at a certain point, and I think it was around the time of a certain twist happening near the first third of the movie, and Rachel, I think you know what I'm talking about. I said to myself, I'm going to use the bathroom, and I think if I know what's going to happens, then I think I'm on the right track. So I go out, do my business, and I come back. It's like 5 or 6 minutes, and the thing that I predicted exactly happened. And I'm not Nosferatu. I am not Nostradamus. I am not a screenwriter. I'm not even close. But I think I've seen enough of these movies to kind of get a good idea of what it's what's going to happen. But I mean, I'm not trying to come off as some kind of like a boo Disney bad kind of person. I wanted this movie to be great, but for me, it was just kind of a it's there. I would have preferred to watch this other director's work, Big Hero 6, over this.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, I think I do prefer Big Hero 6. I actually kind of wish it was a musical. I feel like all of the beats are kind of there for songs in this kind of adventure, and I feel like it would be way more memorable if it was a musical. I don't know, it's just because maybe it's just because I love musicals, and I don't know. I just feel like even with Big Hero 6, I feel like it's a little less memorable because you don't have those Disney songs, but that's a little more understandable because the type of movie it is doesn't really fit. But it being kind of an I want story, a hero's narrative, I just feel like it fits to have songs in this kind of story for a Disney movie. And so I think it was a mistake. But overall, I did enjoy it. I really liked the themes of sort of trust and forgiveness throughout the movie, that she has to learn to be able to forgive this antagonist of the film. And I found that to be very moving. And I think that was probably my favorite. I think that probably partly because we don't have songs and there isn't like the I want song moment I think that I felt like the movie kind of kept Raya at a bit of a distance from me. So I didn't get to know her in the same way that I knew Moana and Elsa and Rapunzel and, some of these other recent, or even going back to the Renaissance, your Mulans, I didn't really get to know her as a person the same way that I've gotten to know some of the other princesses.
Yeah, I feel exactly the same way. And it just the message of it being all about trusting one another. I thought at times it was just a little heavy-handed. There were several times where I was just like, oh, this is going into another monologue about how one must trust each other or else the world will fall into chaos and all that. And like at monologue number 5, I was just like, oh, jeez, it's about trusty and like E is for the energy she gives. Like just can we forward through this, please? Like, and I'm not trying to be a bad person or anything. It just at a certain point, I was like, yeah, we get it. It's about trusting one another. Like, can we talk about something else now? Have you all seen a game lately? Like what?
I guess that is a theme that almost always really rings true for me. It's something that I think is such a difficult thing when you've been wounded, and to kind of trust and forgive is something that is hard to overdo for me. So I think it did work very well for me. And the movie is gorgeous. It is so beautiful. I definitely want to go see it on the big screen like you were able to do. I think that would be really cool. And I think the action was really good. I think if people really like the action in this movie, they should check out a movie called Whitesnake that was from China last year. I think it has a lot of the same type of action. And you can tell that they had some problems with the directors, which is a true thing, that originally this was going to be directed by some of the people involved with Crazy Rich Asians. And they ended up firing that director for, I don't know why. And because she was the one announced at D23. And then they end up having Dawn Hall do it. And I'm trying to see what her name was.
Did she direct Whitesnake before
no.
Crazy Rich Asians, or am I thinking of someone else?
No, it was. Let's see here. I guess no, it was Adele. Let's see here. D23. They announced that it was going to be. I guess maybe it's not. I thought it was a female. I thought it was on the stage, but it's Paul Briggs, Dean Wellens, and Keel Murray were originally attached, and then that's in 2019 at D23. And then in 2020, Don Hall and Carlos Lopez Estrada were signed to the project. So yeah, there was some messiness going on with they originally had a whole different cast and then they recast it with originally it was going to be Awkwafina and Cassie Steele as Raya, and then they announced a whole new recasting with Kelly Marie Tran. Anyway, so there was some messiness going on. That's one thing that's interesting is because people think that they changed everything for Frozen because once they had Let It Go and they changed everything all around. That happens. That's not like unusual. That happens with like almost every animated film.
I'll allow you all a minute to kind of absorb the shock of this announcement, but making movies is really hard.
That's right.
I know.
Yeah.
News bulletin to me, but you know, making movies is truly difficult. Like half of the movies I've reviewed for the AFI project have been something along the lines of the actors were dysfunctional, the directors got changed out, there were 4 or 5 directors on one. Apocalypse Now was literally like hit with storms, floods, to the point where Francis Ford Coppola carried a loaded gun with him everywhere on that set. And that's a severe tangent, but it's just making movies is really hard. So so these
especially an animated film where there's so many different layers to it. It takes so long to make them, years and years and years. It's not, I mean, most Hollywood movies, even difficult Hollywood movies are shot in around 3 months. If it's something like Hallmark movies are shot in 15 days, but usually a couple of months. If it's a really big movie, maybe 6 months. Something like Titanic, I think, was a year, which was crazy at the time. And so but then animation is just a whole nother thing going on.
Another beast entirely.
Yeah, years and years to make these films, and they just change a lot. But you could maybe feel a little bit of that messiness. I liked the fact that the movie felt sort of equally appealing to little boys and little girls. I think they're both going to enjoy it, and I think that they managed to do sort of a girl power without it being annoying. You know what I mean? Like I felt like Raya was just sort of her character and there wasn't any any over the top proclamations or kind of things with her. And I did feel for her when to me at least, that theme of forgiveness and trust really worked for me. They create this fictional land instead of having it being set in an actual nation. They create this fictional land of Kumandra. What did you think of that?
I liked it. I liked the geography. I liked how each nation was named after a part of the dragon, like Heart and Talon and Fang and Spine. Spine was my favorite. I like the Spine warrior with the one eye who was like, I shall join you in this butt kickery. Like he was my favorite character. I could watch a movie with that guy.
Yeah, he was really fun. I also liked the soup maker.
Oh, he was
little boy.
I liked him.
He was cute. What did you think of Awkwafina? And I know there was concern that is she going to be too silly? Is it not going to work with the tone and feel of the film? How do you think that ended up playing off?
I was actually going to ask you that same question. Do you think that she was heavy-handed at times? And I think for me personally, like 3 or 4 occasions she was, but for the most part, I did like her. There were some occasions, though, where she kind of used like 2021 language where she is like, oh, this is giving me bad feels. And I'm like, bad feels? Like, you're a dragon. What's next? You're going to say something is lit or something and just be like ultimate cringe. But again, those were like exceptions to the rule. The rest of the time, she was actually good.
But that was very Disney to me. I mean, your Genie in Aladdin is very like that. Your Mushu in Mulan, your wisecracking sidekick. I think I kind of almost expect that these days with Disney. But yeah, I really enjoyed her. I thought she was really good. I thought she was sweet and funny. And if anything, as far as the sidekicks that didn't really work for me would be more the baby. I didn't really get the baby con.
I didn't
I
get
don't know
the
that.
baby either. That was weird. It was like, like, how did this baby get so adept at like how does she make Jason Statham in the transporter look dumb by comparison? Like, I want to see what training did she get? Like, did she train with the League of Shadows? Where did this baby come from?
In this world, are there just permanent babies? Like they're always babies? Or are they still going to grow up to be a human? I was a little bit confused about that. And they were like, it's a baby con. I'm like, what does that mean?
Now we're getting into the Boss Baby stuff, and Lord knows I don't want to talk about that.
So I don't know. Who knows? But overall, I enjoyed watching it. I thought it was fun. But I agree that I don't think it's as strong as some of the other recent films. Like I know most people disagree, but I would rather watch Frozen 2 than this. Because
me too.
Songs in Frozen 2, and
I'd rather watch Frozen 1 or 2, because I still think Frozen 1 is still of pretty good quality.
Oh yeah, no question with Frozen 1, in my opinion. But nevertheless, it's always fun to get a Disney animated film. All right, well, let's move on and talk about WandaVision.
Oh boy.
So, switching gears. So WandaVision had its episode 9, its series finale last night or this morning, I guess I want to say. I'm a little tired because I don't know how I'm going to get my Fridays going forward. I'm just going to be like itching to something to watch at like 2 a.m.
It's a thing called sleep. It's been around for about all of recorded history.
I know. My body's just used to WandaVision now, 9 weeks. But yeah, and so overall, this was a very ambitious show, of course, with Wanda and Vision, who of course Vision died in Infinity War. And
pretty brutally, I might add. Like literally having the main power source of your entire body ripped straight from your head by a mad titan. Like that's a Mortal Kombat fatality right there.
Yeah. And so now in this story, Wanda is with Vision in this town of Westview, and they're streaming themselves as part of classic sitcoms. And we go through the different eras and all kinds of shenanigans happen. And what did you overall think of the show?
I think I may want to get under my desk to talk about this because I think just judging from the reactions of social media, and I'll talk about that in a second, but I think this may get me some unpopular. This may be an unpopular opinion, but I think the first half of this show was actually really good, like up until a certain point. And then when things started getting revealed, I just found myself pulling myself out of it. I just, like, this is a show of two halves. Like the first half when it was like, oh, paying homage to old sitcoms, and I recognized most of it, and that was actually pretty good. And there was a great deal of intrigue there, and I'm like, what is happening? And even when Maria Rambeau shows up, and I liked her, she was really good. And the FBI agent, I can't remember his name, but he was from Ant-Man and the Wasp. And I'm actually glad that he's actually getting a bigger role because I liked him. Like that whole thing I thought was actually pretty good. And then the stuff about Agnes, that I just didn't get it. And I looked it up. Agnes is clearly a character from the comics. According to Wikipedia, she actually taught Scarlet Witch all that she knew. But it just, I can't talk about what turned me off about the show without going into spoilers. And I don't want to do that. This is a non-spoiler stream, but it just, I don't know. I think it may be just me, but I think this show is quickly becoming overrated because people on Twitter and social media, they're like, this is like top 5 MCU. I'm like, it's not even in my top 10. And I know that's probably going to get me some hate, but it just, I don't
Yeah.
know. On social media, I've already been seeing people like, "Oh, you don't like WandaVision, huh?" And there are literally pictures circling around of either Wanda or Vision, and they're holding like a gun. Like someone photoshopped a gun into their hand, and it's like,
Yeah.
guys, this is a fictional television show. If only I had the time of day to literally Photoshop a gun into a fictional character's hand, just because I didn't like a television show. I may have gone off on a
Yeah.
rant there, but anyway.
Well, yeah, I mean, Twitter
That's
can be the worst. I really enjoyed it. And actually I kind of had the reverse experience, believe it or not, because I liked the first part. I thought it was fun, novel, like it was kind of a parody. And you can see my review of the first 3 episodes on this channel. But I was kind of like, what is the point of this? Like, what? I was like, this is fun, but is this just going to be like a parody show? And then once episode 4 landed, then I was like, ooh, they're going someplace with this. And then it got deeper and richer and more interesting to me. So I actually kind of enjoyed the last half more than the first half. So I had a different experience than you, which is awesome. And I just felt like the way the show explored Wanda's grief was so moving. And again, something we talked about, themes of forgiveness, that connects with me. I think also themes of grief and loss really connect with me. And especially in this finale, with I was crying, I was sobbing, I was so connected. I mean, I've always loved Scarlet Witch, and so I've been kind of frustrated in the MCU because I don't feel like they've really used her. She's just like literally the strongest Avenger, the most powerful Avenger that they have, next to maybe Captain Marvel. And I just feel like they've never really used her that much. And so to get her to kind of really explore the depths of her power, and there are definitely some moments that were maybe a little too cute, like the whole Pietro thing, that, were just sort of designed to get people talking and whatever. And I mean, I had a blast talking with my friends about that, but nevertheless, it was kind of like, that didn't really pay off that well.
I feel like that whole thing with Pietro was just a shock for the sake of a shock, because
Yeah.
it was like we know that there are 2 Quicksilvers, one that was played by Evan Peters in X-Men Days of Future Past and X-Men Apocalypse. Then there was another Quicksilver in Avengers Age of Ultron played by Aaron Taylor Johnson. We know this.
Right.
And it would have been nice if they would have actually done something with him, but again, this is spoiler territory and I don't want to go there. But let's just say his story arc goes precisely nowhere. Like you go down this road and it's like, oh, it's like a whole bunch of nowhere. It's like in this game, it's like in a game of Clue, and it's like, okay, Colonel Mustard killed Professor Plum in the library with a wrench. Go. And it's like somewhere along the way, Professor Plum got murdered elsewhere, and the wrench got thrown out the window. And you can't solve a murder mystery without Professor Plum or a wrench. And again, I know I just went on another tangent, but that's what this show did for me. It's like, okay, I have a feeling now that I know where it's going. And then the show just made choices that I don't agree with. And I know that's probably not going to be the most popular opinion in the world, but that's my story and I'm sticking to it. And I'm not trying to troll. I'm not trying to
I totally get it. And
I'm not trying to be like, oh, Marvel's gone stale now. Like, no, I'm not one of those people. I like Marvel and DC equally. I'm one of those weirdos that likes many things. But it's just, this show didn't stick for me. I'm glad it stuck for you, Rachel, and it's clearly stuck with a lot of people. So my joking aside, I'm glad other people enjoyed it. It's just not for me. I am looking forward to Falcon and the Winter Soldier and Loki, however. Those shows look really good as well.
Can't wait for Loki. I mean, I love Loki. I'm a huge
Tom Hiddleston is the man. He really is.
And I mean, I'm excited to rewatch it multiple times because I feel like there's so much, especially with my my foggy disposition at 2 a.m. watching it every week. I feel like there's so much I missed that I'm excited to kind of dive in and see how it all. I mean, that's the great thing about the MCU, in my opinion, is just the way it's sort of this great puzzle, and movies that you didn't even think mattered that much or were just kind of throwaways, then like, oh my gosh, an Endgame, wow, Thor Dark World really mattered, and you're going back and finding all the pieces. I love that. I think it's so fun. And so, yeah, but the thing I connected the most with, like I said, is this idea of Wanda and her grief and just how profound that was. And especially when you learn that watching sitcoms was the way that she coped with grief. So then that all is kind of coming back together. You understand why the first 3 episodes were just basically parody, which was at the time I was like, what is happening? And so I think it was a very bold start to these, to phase 4 and to these movies. I mean, to these shows. And so I'm excited to see what's going to happen. I'm also excited about Falcon and Winter Soldier. I think it'll be less interesting. It'll be less of a puzzle. It'll be, more basic, which is not bad. I don't mind that. But I don't know. This has been a fun divergence for me. So yeah, I would give it a pretty high score. Probably, I'd probably give it an 8.5 out of 10. But I would probably give Raya, I think I gave it a 7.5 out of 10. So there we go. But let's move on and give our recommendations for Hidden Gems. And
actually, one more thing before we do move on. Just to show that I'm a fair man, I want to talk about my favorite moment in Wandavision. It was actually in the penultimate episode. I believe it was called Previously On. And it was like one of the last, if not the last, scenes where, and just, I'm sure you all have seen the episode, but the basic plot of the episode is that Agnes is taking Wanda through all of the pretty much major events of her life. And at a certain point, we get to post Endgame where basically Wanda's gone to the sword office and all that. And then she goes to Westview for the first time, and she comes across this empty plot of land where Wanda and Vision's house was supposed to be. And she pulls out this thing, and it's a property deed, and it says with a big old heart in the center of it, to grow old in V. And I may have a heart of stone, but it's got a little bit of a red sinew in there somewhere. That was my favorite moment of the show. In terms of visual storytelling, like that was just spot on. Like that's why I'm going to give the show a 6.5, and I give it the 0.5 because of that moment. It was that good. Yeah. And like I said, the rest of the show I don't think really works for me, but again, I know it works for a lot of other people, and I completely respect that.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's talk about our recommendations for that we do on the show. Is we give 5 recommendations, and I think we'll probably be a little bit quicker than maybe we normally are. So this isn't so long since we talked about those 2 shows. But I'll start off. And my first one is Flora and Ulysses. This is a new Disney Plus original film. And it's about a little girl whose parents are separating, and she helps rescue a squirrel, and her father is a comic book artist, and so she kind of loves comics, loves superheroes, and it ends up that Ulysses the squirrel is the flying squirrel, the super squirrel. And it was just so sweet. This movie was adorable. The little girl, it's her first role, Matilda Lawler. she is so cute. Very, very adorable. And Allison Hannigan, who I love from How I Met Your Mother, she's so good as the mother. And she's a romance novelist, and so she has all these all of the covers for her books are these sort of over the top romance kind of novel things, and then Ben Schwartz is her dad, and he's charming, and I thought it was very sweet. So I think people will enjoy it with their families.
Yeah, I remember reading your review and you said this was the Timmy failure of 2021.
It's not as good as Timmy Failure. That's a very high bar, but it's in that genre, in that camp.
You know, we've gotten so far with comic book movies, we might as well make a Squirrel Girl movie. It's like it's only a matter of time.
People keep saying Anna Kendrick, and we should do it. I've never read them, so
I've read like one or two, but I did enjoy them. So
yeah. So what's your first pick?
So my first pick, and this is a movie that's always been with me ever since I've seen it. I thought it was brilliant when I first saw it, but this is a movie that a lot of people don't like. I kind of understand why, but I've always loved it. It's John Carter. This was from 2012, and in 2012, Hollywood really, 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 really wanted Taylor Kitsch to be the next big thing, to the point where he was in 3 movies that year: Battleship, Savages, which is actually not bad, and John Carter. And John Carter is based on I believe, the book of the same name. It's called John Carter of Mars, or the Martian Chronicles, I believe.
Yeah.
And it tells the story of a man named, John Carter, who is transported to the planet of Barsoom, and it's Mars. It's basically Mars. And he basically helps out the Martians defeat a great evil, played by Jimmy McNulty from The Wire. I remember watching the teaser trailer to this movie so many times, like to the point where it's ingrained in my brain, like to the point where I know the song by heart. My body is a cage that keeps me from dancing with the one I love. It's a great song, but I just know the teaser trailer like the back of my hand, to the point where Willem Dafoe gives the line of, "Once I saw you, I knew that you could change this world." And it's like, I know that by heart. And when I saw this in theaters, I thought it was great, and I still think it is. I get why people wouldn't like it. It's not exactly remaking the wheel in terms of storytelling or anything like that, but it's a visual feast. Most of the acting is competent. The action, I think, is very well filmed. It was directed by Andrew Stanton, who, I mean, he's one of the 4 pillars of Pixar. I mean, wrote WALL-E, wrote Toy Story 2, I mean, and the list goes on. So, I mean, I understand why people wouldn't like John Carter, and believe me, I've read a lot of negative reviews of it, but I got to stay true to me, and I've always enjoyed this movie.
Yeah, you know me and fantasy sci-fi, a little bit of a tough sell, but I actually liked this movie pretty good. It's a little boring in spots, but it's a little slow for me in spots, but overall, I think it's a pretty satisfying sci-fi fantasy picture. You think that this was before we got the new Star Wars, this is before and I think it kind of satisfied that kind of need, I guess, for a Star Wars kind of movie. And yeah, I think it's a shame that it didn't do better. I feel like there was a lot of potential to kind of make the next one even better. Though this was like a pretty decent start to this franchise, and they could have done some interesting things with it. But alas, it was not to be.
Yeah, and I mean Taylor Kitsch did end up landing on his feet. I mean, he's been in a lot of movies since. So 2012 may not have been his breakout year, but every cloud has a silver lining.
Yeah, he had a rough road there with Battleship, and then with Wolverine Origins, and I don't know, there were a bunch of terrible.
Battleship is hard work.
Man. I've never seen it. I didn't watch it.
That is like the proof positive case of board games should not be turned into movies unless you're Clue. That's the exception rather than the rule.
Because the Air Force doesn't even use battleships anymore. There's not even a thing anymore. I don't know. It's
they used to, so that counts.
Counts, yeah. So all right. Well, my next choice is The Book of Life, and this is directed by Jorge Gutierrez, and it is a story about Day of the Dead. And a lot of people, of course, compare this to Coco, but we have a million Halloween movies. Why can't we have 2 Day of the Dead movies? Like, what's the problem? To me, they're not actually that similar. This, aside from the setting, this movie is about a romance between the Channing Tatum character and the Zoe Saldana character, and how he's going to go into the Day of the Dead for his love. And yes, it involves music, but it's totally different. It's about adults, not about children like Coco. I don't know. I think they're very different. They just have a similar setting. But this one, it does have its flaws. I think that the voice cast is very strange. I don't understand why you have Channing Tatum in this story. Some of the voice casting, is good, but I don't understand why you have Christina Applegate narrating the story. That's a weird choice. So there were some weird choices, but the animation is so beautiful that I love just watching it for that. And overall, it's a sweet romance, so I'm going to be a fan of that. And I think it's definitely worth watching.
Yeah, I remember seeing this in theaters, and I've never understood the argument of people who are like, Coco is just like the Book of Life. They're like the same thing. It's like they're two completely different stories. I mean, the Book of Life is essentially a romance, and Coco is all about a young boy trying to meet his idol. Like different stories in every single aspect. The only thing that could possibly link them together is that they take place on or around the Day of the Dead. Like, and outside of that, it's like oil and water. They don't mix.
Agreed. Well, what's your next pick?
So my next pick is from 2008, and it is called College Road Trip. And again, this is another movie where I think people wouldn't like it, and I totally get it, but I do. I think it's a pretty sweet story. It tells the story of a father and daughter played by Martin Lawrence and Raven-Symoné, respectively. Raven-Symoné is going off to college, and she wants to go to Northwestern. Yes, she wants to go to Northwestern. And her father doesn't like that because, well, he's very overprotective, like to the point of like neurotic. Like it's not pretty. But he decides to be like, okay, can I at least take you to there just to see what it's like? And she reluctantly agrees, and shenanigans ensue. This is a road trip movie. It's like Planes, Trains, and Automobiles and Due Date and all these other road trip movies. What I like about it is the chemistry between Martin Lawrence and Raven-Symoné. I like Martin Lawrence as an actor and as a comedian. I think he is very funny. And I like Raven-Symoné as an actress. Like, she was just getting off of her run on That's So Raven. It ended in 2007. This came out in 2008. And so this is where like one chapter was ending and another chapter was beginning. And I liked her in this as well. This movie can be very silly at times, but again, it's with a movie like College Road Trip, you're not expecting like Orson Welles or anything like that. This movie knows what it is and plays into that. And overall, I do enjoy it quite a bit.
Yeah, I've never seen it, so maybe I'll have to give it a shot. Maybe we'll do one of our follow-ups. So my next pick is from Sad Face Blue Sky Animation.
R.I.P.
R.I.P. And it is called Epic. And it is a movie that I think is a little bit underrated. I think that the name is a big snore. It doesn't tell you anything about the story and it kind of advertises something that I don't know if it really delivers. I think it's more of a sweet little movie than it is an epic movie about this girl whose father is a scientist studying the creatures of this forest, and she ends up getting shrunken down and becoming like the fairies of the forest. And how's she going to save the forest and going to come back to being a girl and all of this. And it is a messy movie. It's not perfect. The humor doesn't really work. It has a bloated celebrity cast that's completely unnecessary. And you have Christoph Waltz as this villain that's not very good. And so there's things about it that don't really work. But the core story of this girl and her father, I think, does work. And I connect with that. And her trying to kind of figure out who she is and what she wants to do with her life and trying to communicate that to her father. I think that works. And then it's just so beautiful. The animation is gorgeous. And I think I respect about Blue Sky was that they really did swing almost every time. Aside from some of the Ice Age sequels, they really did try to be ambitious, and it didn't always 100% work, but I still respect it as opposed to some other studios that I never take a chance. They never do. And so I think it's worth watching.
If we could trade Blue Sky's life for Illumination's life, that would be great.
Yeah. Yes.
But in all seriousness, though, I remember seeing this movie in the theaters, and I absolutely loved it. Also, bonus points for casting Christoph Waltz as the villain of this movie as being literally Decay. Like that's a perfect choice right there. Like, Christoph Waltz was born to play villains. Like, even Dr. King Schultz in Django Unchained still has the a massive amount of moral ambiguity to him. Like, he's very much an anti-hero, but Christoph Waltz was born to play either anti-heroes or villains. So perfect casting choice by that right there.
Yeah. I think the whole Beyonce thing is not needed in this movie. But I get it. I get why you cast her. But
she's Beyonce, for goodness sake.
So, it's I don't know if it's epic, but I think it's worth a watch. It's on Disney Plus. What is your next pick?
So my next pick is a TV show, and this was a show that I watched too much of when I was growing up. It reran all the time on Disney Plus. It's The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody. This starred Cole and Dylan Sprouse, who are identical twins, and they have a mom who works as a lounge singer at one of the finest hotels in all of Boston. And, well, they get up to shenanigans. That's all I'll say. I remember whenever this show was on and being like, well, there goes an hour of my time. I remember watching the crap out of this show. Like this show was so popular at one point that they would dedicate entire weekends to it. It would be like Sweet Life of Zack and Cody booked solid weekend. And I'm like, well, I guess I'm booked solid this weekend. But the show is really good. It doesn't break like the Disney Channel formula, but it's got a nice message. It has a lot of heart. It's really funny. Cole and Dylan Sprouse are actually pretty good actors. I believe Cole Sprouse has gone on to be a pretty good actor in his own right. I believe he is a regular on Riverdale. I think our friend Micah over at Wimpy Studios would probably have a better know-how on that.
Yeah. But I think he was in that 6 Feet Apart, but boy, or 5 Feet Apart. Yeah.
I actually liked that movie.
Yeah,
I thought that was a very sweet movie.
Yeah, in the world of teenage weepies, I think it's pretty solid.
Especially the ending where he walks away. I'm like, don't walk away, please don't. Like good stuff. But yeah, but this show is just like, it just sticks out with me in my childhood. I remember all of these characters and all these actors. Brenda Song, Ashley Tisdale, Phil Lewis, who I believe was in Heathers. Yes, he was Dennis in Heathers, and he was in City Slickers, and he's been a small part in a lot of big movies. And Kim Rhodes and Brian Stepanek as Arwen, the janitor, who is now on Young Sheldon. And every time I watch Young Sheldon, I'm like, Arwen! So yeah, this is a show that just really sticks out to me. You need to get that.
I've never seen it, but I'm a big defender of Disney Channel. I think they do a really good job with what they do there and entertaining kids. So it's good to know that that's a good one. All right, my next pick is from Wes Anderson. It is The Isle of Dogs.
Love this movie.
Yeah, and this was an incredible film, is an incredible film. The stop motion animation is just absolutely incredible. And the amount of the attention to detail in every single frame is just amazing. It's worth watching just for the backgrounds. And there's this whole setup where they are behind kind of a wall of glass bottles, and it just looks so cool. And yeah, I mean, and this story is funny and sweet, and these dogs, and there's a few nitpicks that I have. I don't really like the foreign exchange student kind of story, and I think it was a mistake to not have subtitles, because then you kind of needed an American character to be kind of the narrator, and they should have just left it. They should have just left it as a Japanese story. I think it would have been better, but nevertheless, I still really enjoyed it. And it was kind of funny because the villain in the movie is called Kobayashi, and the company that I work for is Kobayashi America. So after I saw it, I was like, ooh, Kobayashi. So anyway, it's an incredible work of art, and it's funny and sweet, entertaining. So if you like Wes Anderson and you like stop motion animation, you gotta see it.
Yeah, I think when casting this movie, I think Wes Anderson was like, all right, let's just go through my contact list and hire everybody, because it's like freaking Edward Norton, Jeff Goldblum, Bill Murray, like Frances McDormand, Scarlett Johansson, Harvey Keitel,
Tilda Swinton,
F. Murray Abraham, Ken Watanabe. This is such a stacked cast. If you were to cast at least two of these actors in the movie, like it would have been great. But just all of them is just great. And yeah, this movie is just beautiful to look at, and it's really quotable too. I like the quote where Bryan Cranston's like, "We are a bunch of indestructible alpha dogs. You're Rex. You're King. You're Duke." And it's just like you must take pride in your names. And this was directly after the whole conversation where the Edward Norton dog's like, "I don't think I can stomach any more of this garbage," when they're literally eating garbage, which I thought was really fun.
Yeah, I like that too. Yeah, there's a lot of good humor in the movie, and sweetness. The relation between the little boy and the dog is super cute. And so what is your next pick?
So my next pick, and I think this might be walking a bit of the tightrope of a hidden gem, but it's a movie that I've always really enjoyed, and I think because of the movie that came after it, it has become overshadowed. And my pick is The Wolverine from 2013. This was essentially the audition tape for James Mangold to make what we would eventually get with Logan in 2017. Because The Wolverine is essentially PG-13 Logan. And I know that sounds like a lame duck for some people, but I've always really enjoyed it. The basic story is that Wolverine, by this point, he's broken down. The adamantium is taking a massive toll on him. And so he is contacted by a friend of his, or not a friend, but a person who he saved when the atom bomb went off at Hiroshima at the end of World War II. And by this point, the Japanese man has become vastly wealthy. However, he is dying. And so in his last good wish, he wants to make Wolverine mortal. And throughout the movie, well, we would see what would happen if Wolverine had the claws, but he was also mortal at the same time. This movie is kind of seen as a bit of a write-off, essentially because Logan was excellent, and I love that movie to pieces. But I think Wolverine had a lot of good things in it as well. Hugh Jackman, obviously, he's really good. A lot of the fights that he has are really good as well, except for the ending, which was kind of a lame duck ending, but I won't spoil that. I like the nobility that is presented at Wolverine in Japan. I like that whole dynamic that they had. And I think this movie had a lot more going for it than people would give it credit for. And it has not been helped by the fact that Logan, which is infinitely better, was directed by the same guy, starring the same guy, and rated R. So this is seen as like Wolverine is Diet Coke and Logan is like Coca-Cola Classic. But even still, I recommend giving this a watch if you have not seen it, just for like the fight scenes and the action, because I think they're really good.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it when I was watching the X-Men movies, because I had seen, I mean, it's a billion times better than X-Men Origins Wolverine. That's not even a contest.
No. That's like
And
me going up against Michael Phelps, like in the swimming pool.
that's right.
Like he's gonna beat me halfway Sunday.
And I know a lot of people complain about the ending. I was like, that's fine. I enjoyed it. I like Wolverine as a character, and so overall, I thought it was pretty entertaining. I like the Japanese setting of the story. Kind of gave martial arts sort of feel to it, which I enjoyed. So yeah, good choice. Well, my last choice for my recommendations is the featurette Toy Story That Time Forgot. They did like 3 featurettes. They had the Hawaiian Vacation, they had the Toy Story Terror, and then they have this Toy Story That Time Forgot. And this is a really fun movie. Of course, it's helped in my book by the fact it's a Christmas movie. So yay, I love that. And
You loving Christmas movies? No, I couldn't
sorry.
possibly.
I mean, it's a real out of the box for me. But basically, Bonnie goes over to her friend's house after Christmas, and she's playing over there. And I don't know if it's the brother or whoever, I forget, has this line of toys. The I forget now. I've forgotten the name of the toys, but they're basically like gladiator dinosaurs toys, right? And so Woody and the gang all get involved in this kind of gladiator type thing with these toys, and they kind of has a bit of an 80s sort of feel to it. They even have if you get the DVD, they even have the kind of vintage kind of fake vintage advertisement for a show, like kind of like Transformers, that kind of a thing. And I don't know, it's just a fun little enjoyable Toy Story short, which I mean, I just love there's yet to be a Toy Story that I haven't loved. So
Yeah, I've seen most of the Toy Story shorts. I distinctly remember watching Toy Story of Terror.
that one's so good.
When it premiered on ABC Family. Now it's called Freeform for reasons. But I remember watching Toy Story of Terror when it premiered and loved it. And I really don't know why I haven't seen Toy Story That Time Forgot, but I really have to get on that because I've seen the rest and they're all really good. I think Toy Story is kind of immune to being like bad, because even my least favorite of them, the first one, is still an amazing achievement. It's an incredible legacy to have. Like all 4 of your main movies be either great or excellent, and then have your shorts be great to excellent as well.
I agree. I completely agree. All right, what is your final choice?
All right, so my final choice, and okay, this is definitely walking the tightrope because it is a part of the MCU, but it is the very first Thor. And the reason why I chose the first Thor is that I think just by it existing alongside Thor the Dark World, which is seen as one of the worst Thor movies ever made, and Thor Ragnarok, which is seen as one of the best MCU movies ever, that movie frequently gets lost in the shuffle. But there are many elements to the first Thor movie that are just excellent that I think people just overlook. Not for any reason other than that Thor the Dark World and Thor Ragnarok are on other sides of the scale that people are drawn to either extreme, leaving Thor pretty much all alone. But this movie was seen by everybody, so I don't have to explain the plot, but it's all about Thor. He's the god of thunder. He's on top of things, but then after an incident, he loses all of his powers and he goes to Earth. He's stripped of his powers by his father Odin, played by Anthony Hopkins, and basically has to crawl his way back to where he was. And I gotta say, I've always enjoyed this movie. This was directed by Kenneth Branagh, and he approached this like how he would approach one of his Shakespeare movies, because it deals with fathers and sons and kings and other nations and stuff like that. And I think he nailed it. I think this is the best looking Thor movie ever. I think it gets a little crazy with the Dutch angles at times, but the Frost Giant world looks amazing. Odin's throne room never looked better. When the destroyer battle on Earth is filmed really well, and just on the whole, I think Thor has some of his funniest lines where he has to go somewhere on Earth. He's like, I need to find a horse. And there are like no horses around in this like little podunk corner of New Mexico. But I can see why this movie has been forgotten. I think it's one of like the lesser Phase 1 MCU movies. Even still, I think it's still great. It's very well made, and just it's unfortunate that it also has to share room with Thor: The Dark World and Thor: Ragnarok and Thor: Love and Thunder, which the jury is still out. But I mean, it's Taika Waititi, so I predict it's going to be amazing. So it'll become even more obscure, but
I agree. I agree with you. I really enjoy Thor. I have it at number 11 on my Marvel ranking, so not in the top 10, but pretty high.
11?
Yeah, I have it at 11 in my Marvel rankings. Yeah, out of 23. Yeah, so pretty high. Pretty high. And I'm a huge Loki fan. So love Loki, I love Thor. I love Chris Hemsworth, and all the sort of fish out of water comedy stuff really works. I mean, I think that there isn't much chemistry between Chris Hemsworth and Natalie Portman, so I get that complaint. But you got Idris Elba in here; he's fun. I mean, I don't know, Anthony Hopkins. Come on, I enjoy it.
You can't go wrong with Anthony Hopkins. You just can't.
Yeah, so I have Thor at 11, I have Doctor Strange at 10, and I have Ant-Man and the Wasp at 12. So that's my ranking right now, current ranking at least. But yeah, they know how to make in my opinion at least, they know how to make entertaining films over at Marvel. So there we go. Very good choice. So we did it. We got our recommendations. This is our 10th episode of Talking Disney Plus for Hidden Gems. Can you believe it?
Y'all have no excuses to not find something on Disney Plus. You're like, I already watched WandaVision. Now I can just cancel the whole thing. Like, no, it's like Disney Plus has got depth to it, my friend.
As I've said many times before, there's no excuse to be bored.
None
these days. Well, if you are watching, listening, let us know what you would like us to cover next. We would love to hear your suggestions. Maybe there's a service that we haven't talked about that you would be interested in our thoughts. Put in the comments section. And yeah, your thoughts on Raya and your thoughts on Wandavision and your thoughts on our recommendations. We would love to hear below. And Ryan, where can people find you?
They can find me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd at RyanCam20. You all can rant to me about how my WandaVision opinions are wrong there. And there's my YouTube channel, which is just called Ryan Cam, and it's going to be a busy time coming up because this is on a Friday. This is live on a Friday. So on Saturday, myself and Rachel will be dropping the latest in the Movie Nerds Club and on our top 5 British movies. And I gotta say, this was equally the most fun list to make, but also the most difficult because there are so many British movies that I've seen, and most of them are good. And so I'm like, oh God, what do I cut? Like
it was tough.
You can make 15 top 5 lists with the amount of movies that I found, but it's still going to be fun. I love all the creators in the Movie Nerds Club. You, Rachel, Larry from LC Screen Talk, Ren Geekness, Alyssa over at Mainly Movies, Zach Pope. Like, it's just a great time. And then on Sunday, I'll be posting my first reaction to the Studio Ghibli film Only Yesterday, continuing my I Finally Watched series. And then on Monday, hopefully, if things work out, I'll be posting a more longer review talking about WandaVision Season 1. And then on Tuesday, I'll be dropping a new video that I'm going to be carrying on throughout this year called the New Release Roundup, where I'm going to be talking about all of the new releases that I saw in January and February. So a lot of content coming to my channel. If you haven't checked me out, I ask that you please do. I put a lot of time into it. I'm very proud of where the channel's going and how big it's grown, and it's going to get bigger from here. So I'd love to have you on board.
Yeah, and y'all should definitely subscribe. It's good stuff. And yeah, make sure you're following me here at Rachel's Reviews all over social media. And if you are, we get this uploaded to iTunes, if you can give us your ratings and reviews on there, we really appreciate it. And if you can give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. I'm almost at 3K. We got to get there. It'll be so exciting. So we also have the Hallmarkies podcast, which we have tons of interviews and fun stuff going on over there. We just got to interview Aaron Krakow, who's the big star of When Calls the Heart. So that was pretty exciting. So if you like interesting interviews and lots of fun rom-com and holiday coverage, make sure to subscribe to the Hallmarkies podcast. And I also have a bunch of reviews on my blog that I have uploaded. This I have my Raya review. I just reviewed the delightful show Kim's Convenience, which I just became kind of obsessed with this week, and it was so good. So definitely check that out over there. And thanks again so much, and we'll talk to you all later. Bye, everyone.
Bye.